Hello and welcome, wherever you may be. This week, as it is my habit, I will read out some passages from Mr. Gurdjieff and Mr. Ouspensky. It was on the Karnak that Beelzebub said, "Just as I was leaving that solar system forever, there was again a great deal of talk on your planet about forming a society, and it seems that they were intending to call it the League of Nations. I say again because many times before they had formed similar societies. I remember very well the first time such a society arose there. It was in the city of Samonix, in the country of Tikliamish, which was then regarded as the chief centre of culture. The important beings from most of the communities of the continent of Asia assembled in that city with the aim of drawing up a common agreement, so that among the different Asiatic communities there, never again would there arise any cause whatever for the process of reciprocal destruction. This society had, as its motto, 'God is where man's blood is not shed.' But, owing to their various personal, egoistic and vainglorious aims, these important terrestrial power possessors who had assembled soon quarrelled amongst themselves and went their ways without accomplishing anything." Well, there's a war on today, you may have heard, and not just one either. I was thinking about this passage because it is dawning on me that my life is really very small, and that when I die, all this craziness is probably going to be going on, and that my ideas of helping mankind are rather vain, and that I need to work much harder to get myself out, and that is the only good thing that can happen for mankind also. The universe is very large, and Gurdjieff says that you have to put yourself under a different influence. The influences are already there. People think and I think about what to do, how I can help. But the entire world is fallen, and there are unusual rules here. In fact, humanity does not really comprehend what is happening to it. It's quite strange. And I like a bit of war. I like to get really worked up and support one side, or perhaps the other side. I notice that I can be equally excited no matter which war it is, on which country it is, in which era it is, even if it's in a movie set on a far-off planet. And being angry like that, I think, is actually a great pleasure. Yeah, it's a pleasure. It's a sense pleasure. It's exciting, like Gwyneth Paltrow is exciting, maybe. And the part of me that enjoys talk of war is by no means the darkest and most twisted and corrupt part of me, I can tell you. We are quite open. Every time you eat something or look at something, material is going inside of you. There are thousands or maybe millions of different parts inside of you, some relating to your physical system, some to your psychological system. And they are unfused. We are half-open containers of material. It is only a beginning, and only by the repeated heating and cooling and firing and fracturing of materials do they become fused into a single being. which is extremely difficult to do when the winds and the excitement and the sexualization of society is flowing so fast as it is today. It is very hard to do. Now let's talk about reverse parking. I was chatting to a friend about this the other day. What we're often taught to do, and what many people do, is they try to line themselves up on a certain course and carefully guide themselves on that course. And they may have to try 2 or 3 times. They drive forward alongside the car in front, line themselves up, and slide backwards and turn the other way at the end. What is happening here is simply that the outward mind is trying to discipline the physical body to repeat a movement exactly. In the same way you might whip a horse into shape so that it follows a line and does not deviate. That is how most people in the Western world, and probably the whole world, are trying to live. It's just like going to the gym and doing 200 bicep curls. And you can observe inside you which elements are operating. And the modern world is continuously trying to find these kinds of routines and shortcuts that they can follow mechanically in order to be more efficient. In other words, so that they can sleep more. But there is a different way to reverse park, and that is when the torso is awake and is sensing through the body, through the legs and the contact with the seat, is sensing the car itself and the linkages within the car. It feels how the steering is connected to the chassis and how it's rotating the spatial structure of the car, and it feels the environment. That can only be done through the moving center. And as you gently slide the steering wheel with your fingers and the car is animating backwards, it's the lower body that is spatially experiencing what is occurring. It experiences the outside, meaning the space between the cars and the curb, spatially from the moving center, and then the dynamic movement of the car. These two operations I've described are using completely different faculties inside a human being. And as Gurdjieff would say, only the second one coats or has a future. Now here's something from Mr. Ouspensky during a period of intensive work with Gurdjieff in the early years. The chief difficulty for most people during periods of intensive work, as soon as it appeared, was the habit of talking. No one saw this habit in himself, no one could struggle with it, because it was always connected with some characteristic which the man considered to be positive in himself. Either he wanted to be sincere, or he wanted to know what another man thought, or he wanted to help someone by speaking of himself or of others, and so on and so on. I very soon saw that the struggle with the habit of talking, of speaking in general, more than is necessary, could become the centre of gravity of work on oneself, because this habit touched everything, penetrated everything, and was for many people the least noticed. It was very curious to observe how this habit, I say habit simply for lack of another word, it would be more correct to say this sin or this misfortune, at once took possession of everything, no matter what a man might begin to do. In Essentuki, at that time, Gurdjieff made us, among other things, carry out a small experiment in fasting. I had carried out experiments of this kind before, and a good deal was familiar to me, but for many others the feeling of days which were endlessly long, of complete emptiness, of a kind of futility of existence, was new. Complete silence is simply a way out of life. a man should be in the desert or in a monastery. We speak of work in life, and a man can keep silence in such a way that no one will ever notice it. The whole point is that we say a good deal too much. If we limited ourselves to what is actually necessary, this alone would be keeping silence. And it is the same with everything else, with food, with pleasures, with sleep, with everything. There is a limit to what is necessary. After this, sin begins. This is something that must be grasped. A sin is something which is not necessary. Here we are not talking of people at all. They are going nowhere, and for them there is no sin. Sins are what keep a man on one spot if he has decided to move and if he is able to move. Sins exist only for people who are on the way or approaching the way. And then sin is what stops a man, helps him to deceive himself, and to think that he is working when he is simply asleep. Sin is what puts a man to sleep when he has already decided to awaken. And what is it that puts a man to sleep? Again, everything that is unnecessary, everything that is not indispensable. The indispensable is always permitted, but beyond this, hypnosis begins at once. Certainly this week, in relation to all this warfare that's going on, I've found it very hard to shut up, almost to the point where my arms try to strangle my head, which shows clearly the division. I had a couple of thoughts as I was cycling down the road. One was that I've never been somebody who looks at mirrors very much, and the point was rammed home once when I was on a Buddhist retreat, a Zen retreat in Finsbury Park. It was in a large Victorian house, and the organisers had covered all the mirrors in the bathroom and the hallway with cloth for the period of the retreat. But the thing about mirrors is that they create an external image of yourself that inevitably, like your mobile phone, replaces your internal sense of yourself. Yeah, it sounds innocent at the beginning, but that is the end result. And the soul should be able to internally reflect, and in different ways, to experience themselves, to know who they are. Similarly, I remember very much appreciating my biology textbook when I was in class, but ultimately you're just looking at the material flesh body. You are not even looking at the moving center. And this conditions the intelligence of human beings to understand themselves only physically, which if you speak to people they will tell you about molecules and science, whereas they should really know that they're alive, that they're psychological and emotional, that they are breathing creatures. They should know that, but their intelligence has been conditioned by looking at pictures only of the physical material. There are many things to know, but who knows them? There are many things that can be learned, but who learns them? The Tao of heaven is like the bending of a bow. The high is lowered, and the low is raised. If the string is too long, it is shortened. if there is not enough, it is made longer. The Tao of heaven is to take from those who have too much and give to those who do not have enough. Man's way is different. He takes from those who do not have enough and gives to those who already have too much. What man has more than enough and gives it to the world? Only the man of Tao. Therefore the sage works without recognition. He achieves what has to be done without dwelling on it. He does not try to show his knowledge. Goodbye.